Right, so here's a couple more books, well 4 actually, to add to the bibliography. Missed it out on the last video. 2 books came out in the same week in 2001, and one was by the crazy Matthew Collings called Art Crazy Nation, and it really is focused on Billy Childish in relationship to Stuckism, and being by Matthew Collings, of course, is both entertaining and somewhat inaccurate, but it sounds good. One of the things he suggests in here is that when Tate Modern opened and there was a demonstration, nobody knew who the demonstrators were, but perhaps it was the Stuckists, because they got known for demonstrating. Well, actually it wasn't the Stuckists, but never mind, that's one demonstration we're credited with that we didn't even do. The other book that came out in the same week was The Tastemakers by Rosie Millard, who was then the BBC Arts correspondent. It's got rather a handsome map in here. Well, I don't know if it's a map so much as a diagram. The Mystery of British Culture. There we go. That's the mystery of British culture. And it's a kind of tree, I suppose, like a tree of life, with Damien Hirst placed fairly centrally at the bottom, and around it is all the people that kind of belong with him, like Tracy Emin and Jake and Dinos Chapman, round the base of the tree. And as the tree goes up, you've got these kind of worms coming out of it, which is like David Lee, of the editor of the satirical art magazine The Jackdaw, and you've got the Stuckists coming out as part of it there. And there's a chapter in the book where Rosie met up with Billy Childish and myself at the Arts Club in Dover Street and had a chat, and that's what she's reporting on. And it's in a chapter called The Grump Fest, Fear and Loathing from the Outsiders, which means the people on the outside who are fearful and loathing, I guess. She does end up, unless of course Stuckism becomes the new Impressionism, which is a reference to the fact that I'd said the Stuckists were like the Impressionists. Oh, I've just noticed actually there's a picture of me on the back here, right next to J. Jopling, which is rather odd. If you can see that there. I think perhaps it's a juxtaposition of spectacles that, you know, I'm wearing one type and he's wearing another type. Now, entirely different to that are some kind of local interest books, actually. There's one here, From Chaucer to Childish, A Chronological Survey of Writers and Artists in the Midway Towns, by Michael O'Connor. That's that. That's published by the Midway Delta Press, and it does have Stuckists in there as artists and writers. Because Billy Childish is still living in the Midway Towns, which is Chatham, Rochester, Gillingham, Rainham and Strood, and so are various other people. Bill Lewis is still living there in Chatham. Joe Machine lives there at the moment, he's in Gillingham. Wolf Howard is still living there. And kind of like Stuckism was split halfway between London and the Midway Towns, really. So there's still a lot of interest in the Midway Towns for Stuckist artists and Stuckism. Particularly in this book, which is The Arts in Midway. And that's Volume 1, The Midway Scene. This is published by the Urban Fox Press. Quite a bit about Stuckism. There's one of the posters. That's a painting by Joe Machine for a show in 2000, the Real Turner Prize show. There's some work by Bill Lewis, and actually quite rather interesting rare photograph of 5 of the 6 Midway poets. You can see that at the top of the page there. That's by the River Medway. and there's Bill Lewis, Billy, Childish, Sexton Ming, Miriam Carney and myself. That must have been about 1979, someone's found that somewhere. And there's of course the obligatory pictures of Tracy Emin in a short skirt from that sort of period, the 80s. And some rather nice, I'd say quite a selection of paintings here. Oh, you can see that one. So that's, I don't know if that's still available or not. It's probably quite hard to get hold of. But sometimes these rarer books obviously pop up on eBay or something like that, or a second-hand bookshop. So that's a survey of, along with the other video, of some of the, or the first video shoot we did of some of the kind of main books where you can get references for Stuckism. Can't go into the newspaper articles right now because there's too many of them, but one that's worth mentioning is the Sunday Times culture supplement in, when would that have been, 1999, August I think, end of July, beginning of August, where Stuckism was on the cover of that. And around about the same time there was a full page in the Times on the revolution waiting to happen, Stuckist rebellion against Brit art. They're early mentions. In fact, I think the first mention of Stuckism was actually in the Evening Standard diary that just announced this group was starting out and had been named after an insult by Tracy Emin. So that's the first ever mention. Then the next two mentions were in these two papers, Sunday Times Culture Supplement and the Times. So that kind of kick-started things rather nicely.